So we've talked about this before, but there are folks that go through tough times and then the recovery is so phenomenal. Today, we're going to talk with someone who has not only recovered from previous experiences, but has exploded. Coming up next. All right, Devan. I love your story. We've talked about it before. I obviously know a lot of the moving parts of it. But I want to start with that. I want you to tell me your story as you would to someone off the street. What is it?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the interest in it, and I never get bored talking about it because it's inspiring to me to be able to share it with other people and watch how it impacts them. And so, what the story goes, I grew up in Battle Creek, Michigan. My father was an alcoholic, addicted to drugs, to cocaine, to marijuana, and my mother the same. And my father actually was in and out of prison and or jail his whole life, or in my whole life. My mom drug me around the country, kind of chasing boyfriends when I was a young kid. And I lived in 7 different states by the time I was like 10 years old, and ended up moving ultimately back to Battle Creek, Michigan. My mom and dad had a relationship that was off and on, and she ended up leaving when I was about 13, and I haven't really had a much of a mother figure in my life ever since. And it was tough, man, growing up in an environment, a couple blocks from the projects, on food stamps. Your father, abusing you physically and mentally and emotionally, and not having a mom there. So, and I never tell the early childhood story to gain sympathy, but more so people that can be moved and understand that their background doesn't have to dictate their future. And so, what I really did is focused on what I could control. And you hear that so often, but what else do you do when you're in a situation where seemingly everything is going bad? And so I ended up having a natural talent at sports, baseball specifically. And so I found myself using the weight room, using the baseball field to escape the home life. I was the first one to show up to practice, the last one to leave. All because mostly I wanted to escape what I knew was inevitably waiting for me at home. But then when I realized I had some talent and other people started telling me that I had talent, I really started getting my shit together. And about 15 years old, I remember so deeply yearning for a mentor. And I didn't have one in my life. My uncles were the same as my dad, and my mom, I had no relationship with her. And so there was nowhere for me to look. I wish I could go back and say that I had a teacher or a coach or something, someone in my life that really, kind of took me under their wing and mentored me, but I didn't. And so what I did was dug through my parents' like CD collection at the time. This is gonna make me sound dated. I'm only 31, but it's making me sound dated. And I found Personal Power by Tony Robbins. And I remember putting that in my Sony Walkman. For those of us that can remember, there used to be a cord to your headphones.
Used to be a cord.
And I would listen to that to and from school every day. And I remember that moment in my life when I made a shift is when I started hearing Tony. And, he's changed so many people's lives. But for me specifically, it really helped me save mine. And from then on, I knew that I needed to get my head on straight. I knew baseball was my ticket out, and continued to develop myself, 3-sport athlete. Get great in school. I've made some trouble, don't get me wrong. It's hard not to as a teenager when you have no boundaries. But then got a scholarship to Central Michigan University, played 3 seasons there before I was picked up by the San Francisco Giants to play professionally for 3 years. And that's kind of stopping right there. That's the quick snapshot of where before I moved on into the burn boot camp business and have done what I've done today. That's kind of what set it up.
Yeah, and I want to definitely touch on the burn stuff. I think your foundation is so incredible, and there's a few things that I want to follow up on. One is you should have been a statistic. I mean, mathematically, those that have parents that call it maybe not their fault. Call it addiction or some other cause that made them not be the parents that they potentially could have been to you. You should have fallen down that path. Do you feel like instead of coping, some people would cope with drugs, some would cope with emotions, that you basically took your life addiction and some sort of outlet to have that emotional feel into sports, like that turned into an outlet for you that maybe nobody around you could even see, but you were pouring it all into something because that's all you knew.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you hit it spot on. Look, when you grow up in an environment where when you're broke, when everyone else around you is seemingly successful, there's a pain that gets associated with that. And I have always been somebody who valued being respected, and being the son of parents like that innately gives you disrespect from other people in your community because you're that kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, no parents want you hanging out with their son or daughter. And so I had to deal with that issue growing up. And for me, it was about, and I didn't realize it until after the fact, but it was about not being disrespected for something that was out of my control. And so I really used and leveraged the pain that I felt and put, like you said, put that into something positive, put that into something where I knew that if I could play baseball and basketball and football and I can excel at sports at a high level, well, that's going to give me a higher level of respect in my community. And honestly, that was something that I really deeply wanted because it was never my fault that I was innately disrespected. I can remember one specific time I was at a friend's bonfire and he lived in the more affluent neighborhood in my community. And I remember that I was not allowed to be there because his parents had said, listen, I don't want Devan here. I know who his parents are. I don't want kids like that to be here at my house. And his parents came out back to the bonfire. I literally had to go around the garage and I had to hide behind a wheelbarrow behind the garage and pretend like I wasn't there. And it was that I can remember specifically sitting in that time in my life, thinking to myself, like, why is this happening to me? And then as soon as I gained a little bit of respect from playing baseball at a really high level, it was like game over. I was like, as soon as I got a taste of that, it was that magic of momentum, that cycle that was like, just give me more and give me more. And that fed my work ethic. It fed my drive.
I want to unpack something else there. I think I enjoy the study of the professional athlete. So there's something inside them, something in the DNA that makes them, even call it just slightly better than the rest, whether that's someone whose shot makes the ball go in better in basketball, or their golf swing, the flexibility in it. But for a pitcher, I would imagine that extra few miles per hour on the pitch has to come from something that's deep inside the heart. Did that give you an advantage that, whether you recognized it or not at the time, that you were able to access that frustration or anger, and that every time you threw that ball, it went a little bit harder than everyone else?
You know what? No one's ever put it that way before, which that's a great observation. And I was always coined as like a super intense player. Like, I think that now that you're saying that, and I got the goosebumps right now as you're making that observation. I think that that's absolutely true. I think that every single pitch was with conviction. It was with intensity. I brought everything I had to the plate, threw the ball, and transferred that energy. And I think largely the intensity was what characterized me as a good player. And you're absolutely right. I could crank it up at any given time, and you could dig down and you could pull something. And the disadvantage that oftentimes you see this with successful entrepreneurs is the disadvantage ultimately becomes the biggest advantage, because the other side, you know what it's like to feel that pain. And there's almost this desire to in refusal to ever go back to that place. that I think is extremely powerful, in a pitch or in a business or in a relationship, whatever it might be, that the pain and pleasure are the only two things that motivate us. And for me, pain was an extremely powerful motivator, and baseball and pitching was a way for me to express that pain and that anger without staying in it long enough, because nobody wants to stay in pain, right? Because that's called suffering. But if you stay in pain long enough to use it to get disturbed, and so it can move you in a positive direction, I think that is extremely powerful. And it was definitely an outlet for me. And I now that you say that, I think that's a really great observation, that there was an intensity that came with each pitch, almost if I was like pitching myself out of the gutter.
That's it. Honestly. Yeah, you had a motivating factor that nobody else has, or take it that every great athlete has something like that behind their story, that extra degree that they get to push themselves. But so shame on your parents for the way that they raised you, or the way that they treated you while they were raising you, or the life circumstances that hit them. But thankful, and there's the silver lining, it gave you one extra piece that you're able to use in that first chapter. And then shame on baseball, because 3 years as a professional athlete and then not giving you the shot to go to that next level. Shame on baseball, because then that leads you into being an entrepreneur. So that motivation that same degree had to be there when you said, I'm going to set up a business in a parking lot.
Yeah. And so my parents, like, for me, in order for me to move on and be a grateful person moving forward, you have to, at some point, if anybody out there has ever been through a situation where, and there's plenty of people who've had a darker past than mine, but certainly not an ideal one, there's almost a level of forgiveness that you have. And if you're going to blame your parents for all of the wrong things that they did in your life, I think that you also equally need to blame them for the advantages that they gave you, or the things that they did for you, and actually really thank them. And the same goes with baseball. Look, I am today, like, I grew up a Detroit Tigers fan. Like, the Giants gave me a shot. They gave me an opportunity to reach my dreams. They gave me a signing bonus when I was a broke kid. I was on food stamps from the time I was 5 years old to the time I was 21 years old and eligible for them. And the fact that they gave me a signing bonus to throw a white ball across green grass and give me like an opportunity to feel, at least temporarily until it went mostly to my student loans, that what financial freedom could feel like, for that, I'm forever grateful. And I don't blame them. I don't play the blame game. First of all, I don't complain about anything in my life. I'm grateful. I'm blessed. I'm here. I'm living. Like, I'm much further than I thought I would be when I was 15, 16 years old. But the fact that the Giants took me in and gave me a shot, I'll forever be grateful. And it was my fault that I didn't get to the next level. I didn't do what I should have done while I was there, to maximize my opportunity. And at the end of the day, they've been a huge blessing in my life. I've been able to reach out to the director of baseball operations, Bobby Evans, since starting the business and gaining scale. And we'll definitely have a relationship in the future.
So, but inside you, your dream of becoming a major league baseball player ends up falling shorter than you wanted. So, yeah, I completely agree. The bullying that I battled when my life story was being crafted, it sucked in the time. I found a little bit of momentum in things that I was good with. I got the same support structure that you probably did when you get baseball. I was getting it in writing or being an entrepreneur. And then, but it's not negative, but it sits down there to keep motivating you. That second that you want to go hide behind the shed again because you feel shamed, it's like, hey dude, you're good. Like the bottom is so much, it's long in the past. Go fucking crush it. Like, it's still in there,
Oh, dude, 100%. Like, I keep every memory. I recall my memories often, and I paint those pictures in my mind when I spend a lot of time in just original thought. And I replay those memories often, and it's not something that I'm thinking about or that I'm focused on, but it's something that I'm painting that mental picture in the back of my mind to be to remember and recall what it feels like to have your back against the wall. And when your back is against the wall, you'll push like hell to get it off the wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes, which for me are very, very short stints at this point, I've really done a great job of conditioning myself to not get complacent. But those day or two, or, at the end of the day, when you go home and it's 6 p.m., you spend 2 hours with your kids and you need to be working from 8 to midnight, but you feel like doing something else. Like those are the times when I try to really pull out, me getting thrown down the stairs, or I got my head shoved through drywall a few times, or my opening game when I was a freshman in college to pitch and to start. My father went to jail like 3 weeks before that and wasn't going to make my debut in college. And so I just remember and try to paint those memories, because pain can be a powerful motivator if you allow it to be a powerful motivator. If you stay in pain, that's called suffering. But for me, like, dude, I agree with you. Like, for me, I just you imagine them in your gut. I imagine them on the back of my brain as almost etches just painted in stone or carved in stone. And when I need them, I recall them, and instantly, bro, it's like motivated. You're pushing through no matter what. There's nothing that can stop you, because you instantly go back to that place when you felt like the world was on your shoulders, and any type of momentum can get you going again. So I definitely use that.
It helps with recovery too, because so start and finishes. You have a start and a finish as your childhood, and your childhood probably ended a little bit too early because of your circumstances. You have a start and finish to your baseball career, and for some people, start and finishes are really hard because they take it as I'm starting over, whereas those that have gone through the experiences say I'm taking the next step. So it's like a ladder going up versus this bell curve of you falling down to the bottom. So when you get out of baseball, no, you're not starting over. I mean, the real world would say, dude, you're starting a business for the first time. You're starting over. And you're like, I'm actually creating an extension of what my life brought me to this point. So you may be starting with $0 in your pocket to start Burn Boot Camp, but you were doing something bigger. You were taking the momentum of what you built and bringing it into this next thing. Talk about that moment where now you took all these energies and applied it to being an entrepreneur.
I said about it in a book called Stop Starting Over, and I have this chart in there that basically depicts the areas of the times of motivation in your life versus the times of demotivation, and how those things, they kind of ebb and flow over time, but you're on an exponential path moving forward. In the times that you were demotivated 2 years ago, or motivated 2 years ago, you're in a much better place being demotivated 24 months later than you were. So there's an interesting dynamic about how that happens. But the reason I put that in the book is because not a lot of people see that when they're in the moment. Like, I didn't get released from the Giants and been like, oh shit, this is a great opportunity for me to like really capitalize, and really have a great positive attitude and like use this as a failure and like move forward. Dude, I was devastated.
Yeah.
Like there was like, in retrospect, sure, but just to empathize with people in the moment, I was freaking devastated. I sat in my hotel room and bawled my eyes out for forever, just because I'd worked every single day of my life since I was 6 years old. It was everything I connected my identity to. There was an emotional element that went into making the Giants. It was like almost like I made it out of the hood. What happens when I get released? Am I going back there?
Yeah, right.
And you instantly fall back into that mindset, and there's nothing a human being can do about it. And so actually I needed an outside force at the time. And my wife and I had a conversation, and she's like, Devan, like, she just made me realize, she's like, look at what you've done. Like, you're in the top 0.002% of players in the world. You made money playing baseball. Like, listen, you got to just keep moving. And she kept telling me that over and over on like an hour conversation, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And so that's still my motto today, is keep moving. And so I flew back to Naples. I got it's actually funny. I worked at Best Buy for 3 weeks until I realized that that's just not for me, not for me, and ended up getting a personal training certification. I started my own boot camp in Naples, Florida, called Lightning 900. Burn 900 calories, lightning fast was the tagline, and that was kind of the first iteration of Burn Boot Camp. When I realized that I had some marketing skills, I was marketing it out of a box gym, and so Morgan followed her career to Charlotte. That was my sugar mama. She was paying my cell phone bill. Like, that's the only reason I ever talked to her. She was paying my cell phone bill since I had one at like 17, and or her parents were. I'm still not sure to this day. But she moved to Charlotte. There's no way I was not following her. But I was like, I got treated so poorly at Life. I'm gonna say the name of the gym, but at the gym I was at, and I wanted to create something on my terms, and I knew that I had some skills. And even if I had no skills, at least I was going to try. And I did it. We started a parking lot. I had $600 to my name, no resources in Charlotte, knew nobody. My proposition to these women that I first trained with was like, hey, hi, I'm Devan. I'm a 23-year-old guy that you don't know. Come train with me in a dark parking lot at 5 a.m. in the morning. And it's like, how compelling is that? And we started $600, some rusty dumbbells, 21 ladies. Fast forward, this was 2012. Fast forward to a couple years later, 2014, we decided to franchise. And when we decided to franchise, we finally got the deal done in February 2015. And from there, we've grown to, we almost have 400 units awarded. We have 203 units today open. And we're just 4 years in franchising, one of the fastest growing fitness franchises that's ever existed. And what I'm most proud of is that we're doing it with quality. We're doing it with community. We're doing it on the back of creating lasting changes in people's life, on the back of a mission where we're dedicated to a world where women and men love themselves and for who they are today, but don't accept that, and then they're inspired by who they'll be tomorrow, and that just is woven in through everything that we do.
Everything you just said, what I find fascinating about you is that I think the widget happens to be fitness, but I don't think it mattered. I think you could have applied this to anything. You're talking about bigger things. Every message you just said that you're giving to what a franchise owner can have as a part of your family is everything that you wanted in your life too. So the widget it's irrelevant. Yes, you're passionate about Burn Boot Camp, but it could have been selling anything because all that experience, like the foundation that's behind this is so much larger than the brand itself, at least in my opinion.
You're exactly right. I mean, you look at it this way: when the main motivation is if selling is influence and influence is the transference of emotion, and I'm super influenced myself because I have children and a wife who are not going to grow up in the same position that I grew up in. Right. That's the ultimate driver. That's the ultimate influence. And like you said, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I know that like entrepreneurship is in my DNA. Like, I was sick of being broke as a kid. So instead of going out in the snow time and going sledding during the winter time, I would go shovel driveways for money. When I was 16 years old, I worked on a roof all summer. I bought a Pontiac Grand Am. I flipped that. Bought a Ford Excursion. Flipped that. Bought a Ford Escape. All right, and then flipped that. Got another Grand Am, a newer one, a nicer one. My mom and my dad got back together very, very briefly. My mom sold my car, left town. Then I went out, worked again, got a Ford Probe, flipped that, got to a Mustang with like $5,000 in my pocket or something by the time I was 18. It's always been in my blood to be an entrepreneur. And so selling is influence, right? And I'm influenced because I don't want to be broke. I don't want my family to be broke. And I want to make sure that they have not only a better life than I did, but like 100x life than I ever had or could have ever dreamed of providing to them. So at this point, Morgan and I are focused, yes, on Burn and growing it to not only 1,200 units in the United States, but thousands of units globally over the next 7 to 8 years. But franchising is an infrastructure. Franchising is a group of people who all collectively believe in leadership and towards a mission. And so what I'm really interested in is using my leverage, using our fast growth in the future to be able to start a brand group with my wife and the infrastructure that we built here at Burn Bootcamp HQ in Charlotte.
Are you ever fearful about what your children, what their bad day is? I mean, for me, I have the same visions. I set up my children for a better situation than I had, and I think a lot of healthy parents have those same things. But does it scare you at all of what their bad moments are going to be, given the way that you understand what a bottom feels like, at least in your world?
They're going to grow up they're going to grow up with so many resources and so privileged. The only thing that scares me about them is they're not entitled little shitheads. Honestly, like I'm not concerned about what they'll go through. Like I will probably have to intentionally put them through shit just so they learn lessons. So that honestly, that's what scares me more than anything is growing up with entitlement. But for me and the lessons that I want to teach my children is I just want to teach them to be compassionate and kind and encouraging and enthusiastic and energetic. And, like I will celebrate when Cameron helps her little brother up off the ground after he stumbled over the carpet, for 6 straight weeks after he did it, because I want to really overemphasize being a kind human being. And I'm fearful of entitlement, and I'm fearful of them because of that entitlement, because they're going to grow up the rich kids, being the kids that think they can be mean to everybody else. So I'm really trying to parent my ass off and reverse engineer all the things that I think are going to happen and start instilling those beliefs and those values in them now, so that, they have to work for, my son's going to work on the roof the same way that I did.
Yeah.
And when he does, he might get paid a little bit more handsomely for it, but he's still going to go and do the work. And my daughter is 3 years old and she already wants to go to Target every night I get home and buy a new toy. And I'm just like, no, babe, no, can't do it. So
mine too there. So the last thing that I want to ask, so anybody that follows you on Instagram can see this, but you're in race training mode now. And there's some peace that comes with just being quiet in your own zone. At any point when you're running, or even going back to baseball, you had to find another few miles per hour on your pitch. When you're running, is that motivation still there? And do you ever get a chance to just say, "Holy shit! Look how far I've come"? Where you got that goosebump moment where you could just pause for a second, because the other thing you'll see on your Instagram is you are a full speed dude. So do you ever get that moment of silence in your head where you could just say, "Hey, this is pretty crazy"?
I thrive, honestly. I really do thrive in the chaos. As we're sitting here having this conversation, I'm in the moment with you, and I love having the conversation, but I'm already thinking about my next interview and what I'm going to say, So for me, having a bunch of stuff rattling around in my head all the time is normal. I don't think you go from $600 to $100 million organization in 4 years. Well, really six years from the conception of the brand. If you're not able to, take on the obstacles, because business, as you know just as well as I do, that as the leader of No Limit, dude, it's full-time firefighting, full-time putting out problems, and
right.
You have to deal at the top of any organization with the most bullshit. And I thrive in that. I love it. I look at our problems as an opportunity. And the times when I get solitude, honestly, are on plane rides. I really do love to spend time writing and creating and putting my thoughts permanently on paper for other people to read. And I like to do that on the plane. When I'm running, honestly, if I'm being real, when I'm running, I'm just trying to get to that 3.2 and not die. It's so hard. If anybody is never for those of you that don't know, you can follow my Instagram, but I'm doing I'm going to the biggest 5K races across the country, and I'm going to try to win 6 in a row, and I'm not going to stop till I win 6 in a row. And it is the hardest workout ever when you are pushing pace for a short, intense version of it. And the reason I chose 5Ks is because I need my goals to always constantly seem closer than they appear, so that I don't wake up one day and be like, oh, my goals are so far away. Like, let me just run a marathon pace because I know that I'm going to get there and it's going to take a while. I want to run the pace of a 100-meter sprint because I know my goals are just right there in front of me and they're always closer than they seem. And so part of doing 5Ks, not only for conditioning and have a goal, but is to really subconsciously say that, like, whatever you have in front of you, go as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and you'll get there quicker.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing about that is that if you really reflect back on your life, and even me, the chaos is comfort because of some of the other chaos that happen externally to us in our lives in different degrees. But the chaos turns into our norm. It's our safe place. And even the metaphor of you pushing yourself so hard to run away from that beginning line to win the race is still true in everything you did, whether that was your parents, your baseball, or your business, and now running races. It doesn't, that's where the widget is irrelevant. You're running at the pace that you are for something bigger. It's inside your DNA. And therefore, if you were a new stock on the stock market, everybody should be looking at this one and saying invest in it, because when you catch people like that, there is no stopping them as human beings until life stops them itself.
Dude, perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. That was awesome.
I appreciate this conversation, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Tons of people are going to get value out of this.
Dude, thank you so much, Nick. I love what you do. Love the magazine. Love the online publication. You're one of the best out there, my friend. Keep killing it.